Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Joseph Pilata, aka Young Joe, now renamed myself as Joseph P. Don't really ask me why I changed my name to Joseph P. I just realized that Young Joe was copywritten, and I'm kind of late in the game as far as making my online presence. But what I'm about to do is share my testimony, part of my testimony. I have a long testimony. I have a lot of different parts of a testimony. I'm definitely going to focus on my life growing up as a child, the decisions and things that I happened to make that kind of put me in a position to go places I didn't want to go. And the things that led me up to my saving knowledge of Jesus Christ, aka Yeshua HaMashiach, to be my Lord and Savior. So I was the first Pilata born in this country to my family. And growing up, I took a lot of pride in that. I was very close to my father, very close to my father's family. That's where I felt my connection. But the house I was raised in initially was my mom, my dad, a younger brother, my older brother. Up until about the age of 5, age of 6, my life was good. I don't recall any kind of bad memories. Just a lot of happy memories, as far as, normal kid stuff. We weren't a wealthy family. We weren't a poor family. My parents would have Christmas. I remember getting Christmas presents. I remember getting birthday presents. I remember my grandparents coming visiting. I remember all that. I remember my parents, taking me to church. Used to go to church together for a lot of parts. And I was, a very young age. But when you're, so young, you can be easily oblivious to everything going on around you, from your parents and issues and fighting and stuff like that. So I remember one of my first encounters with, I guess, a real world scenarios, around the time of me maybe in 6, maybe 7. I know I was about in 2nd grade, maybe older, probably 2nd grade, whatever. My dad took me out somewhere to the aquarium. We went to the Baltimore Aquarium for the whole day. I had a great time. I remember it was me and my dad. I remember it was fun. It was exciting. But I remember coming home. And when we came home, the house was completely empty. It was gone. My mom, I realized that my mom left my dad, took my brothers. They moved out the house. We came home. And I remember at that point, at that day, going upstairs and hearing my dad on the phone crying. And it's at that time, I wasn't fazed or impacted by the fact that my mom and my brothers, nobody was there, because I saw my dad. And at that time, he was everything to me. He was so part of my life that everything, all my good memories I remember, always revolved around him. I remember seeing him sad and crying, but I wasn't sad because I was like, hey, my dad's still there. So eventually, Dad had to move to another apartment. I stayed with him, and I started visiting my mom about every other weekend while I was living with my dad. And that happened for, I guess, about a year or so. And then one day I come home from school in the 3rd grade, and at this point, my mom has my stuff on the porch, and I see my dresser and everything, and she tells me she's coming to take me so I can come live with her. And that's what it was. I didn't have any heads up. I didn't have any kind of knowledge or understanding. Of course, I was kind of hurt and sad. I didn't know why, but at a young age like that, you don't question your parents. What it is. So I went to go live with my mom. New school, new friends, everything. The new kid. It was a little bit challenging. When I lived there, I didn't feel like part of the family because my mom already had met a new guy. She had moved in with him. My brother was already living there. They were, my mom was dating him for a little while, so they already had kind of the family, starting. And I come later on to kind of like be added into the mix. At this point, I was now seeing my dad every other weekend versus seeing my mom every other weekend. One of the earlier, I think, traumas that I experienced at a time, there was a day or so when my mom was ready to take me and my brother somewhere, and she was taking us up to a place called Hershey Park. And at this point, I wasn't sure what was going on. I didn't know, she was showing us these pamphlets all of a sudden, telling us how great this place was and how good it's going to be for our future. And I'm thinking, like, what are you talking about? I'm not really sure what's going on. Like, what do you mean? And come to find out, She was trying to put me and my brother into a boarding school until we would turn 18 years old. And at that point, we would, I guess, be able to do what we wanted to do with our life. So I was completely taken off guard. I had no clue what this woman, my mom, was thinking. I remember sitting in an office with one of the people there, and they were saying, "Oh yeah, Joe, we're really happy to have you." They said I was so smart, my IQ was so high, and whatnot. And all of a sudden, people trying to sell me how great of a situation is going to be. I'll be able to make friends and stay in a room with a bunch of other boys. I'm like, oh, what's happening? I'm like, hold on, Mom. I'm thinking like, didn't you just come me to be with my brother? You said. So, probably for the first time in my life at that age, I had to take matters in my own hand. I was like, okay, they had me fill out this questionnaire, to describe a lot of things about myself, yada, yada, yada. And I remember the very top of the letter where it was like, oh, state your name. Every single word I wrote was, F this, I'm not effing coming here. I don't want to effing be here. I'm not effing doing every place I could put it. I don't know where that came from, because I was not a bad kid. At that point, I was not known to have any kind of like crazy anger or any kind of outbursts like that. And I remember after turning that paper in, and my mom had to go into a separate room, and then when she came out, we just left. Nobody said nothing to me. On the way home, my mom didn't address it, didn't talk about it. And that's the last I ever heard about trying to be put into a boarding school. After that, I was talking to my dad about it, and letting him know what had happened. And he got pretty upset because he didn't even have an idea that was happening. He was, my mom was kind of wilding out. And, later on in life, I had to ask her, why would she do that? Why would she do that? And, her response was that she just knew that the life she was living and the way that the guy was going to be in the situation they were in, that she didn't want us to have to experience that. So that was her reasoning. It is what it is. I'm 38 years now. It don't matter to me at that point. But I'm just sharing, part of my past and history. So that was around the age of 10. Shortly after that, at this point, once again, I was visiting my dad every other weekend. And I remember he got put on house arrest for some things. He had got in trouble once upon a time when he was a prison guard. And there were times where we would come visit, and for one reason or another, he ended up breaking his house arrest, and he got put on time to go to jail. He had to do, from what I remember, 6 to 9 months. I remember having to find out that my dad was, going to jail. And, that was kind of sad. I was hurt. Because I was like, dang, my dad's about to be gone. Like, man, he was my refuge. Every other weekend he would come and get me, and I could oh, okay, life's gonna be okay. Whatever I gotta go through, I know my dad's in my corner. And I remember my mom was gonna take us up to visit him one time, and I remember driving, being in the car for so long, and I remember stopping at a store and just stopping there for a while, and I remember we never actually went. We didn't actually go to visit him. For some reason, we ended up turning around and going back home. And then one day I got a phone call from my dad while I was, sitting at home playing video games during the summer. And I remember picking up that phone and answering, and, hi Joseph, how you doing? What's going on? I was like, oh, hey, Dad, how's it going, man? Hey, I'm sorry I can't really talk long right now. I'm busy. I'll talk to you later, Dad. Bye. And I hung up the phone. Because I started playing a video game. I kind of got into it, and I hung up the phone to my dad. Little did I know, that'll be the last time I ever heard his voice or talked to him. Few weeks, I don't remember exactly the time or the events of everything that happened, but one day, I remember my mom's boyfriend woke us up with the dog. It was early, opened the door, let the dog in, wake us up. This is kind of awkward. He had a big German Shepherd, Lady, great dog. Dog was usually outside though. Dog didn't come in the house too much, so it was kind of weird. The dog was waking me up, and he's like, hey, come downstairs. I was like, okay. So I come downstairs, and see my mom on the couch. I see my brother Mike on the couch, and we sit down on the couch. My mom gets up and she says, "Your dad's dead." When I heard those words, I didn't comprehend it at first, but I knew she was being honest and she was telling me the truth that that was dead. At that point in my life, I didn't know that he was sick and dealing with issues. At that point in my life, I didn't know that he was still dealing with Agent Orange issues from when he was in the war, Vietnam. I didn't realize all that. I didn't know what had happened to him. I didn't know how the prison had changed medications that he had got on from the VA and had went back and forth. I didn't know none of that. I guess I was so young, ain't nobody thought it was important to tell me it either. But after I heard those words, I must have blacked out for about 2 weeks. I don't remember another memory. The first memory I remember after that was the first vivid memory I remember, and I don't know if this was before or after the funeral, but one of the earliest memories that I have after that situation when my father passed, where I realized that I started to see this world in a completely different place, and I started feeling like I was on my own, and this is what I was going to have to deal with. I remember coming out of a restaurant with my mom's boyfriend, my brother, and Pizza Hut, something like that, and they were walking back to the car, and they were all smiling, laughing, having a good time with each other, and I'm kind of falling backwards, like slowing down. I'm watching them walk towards the car, and it just seemed like so happy, so enjoying life, and I just remember yelling out at him, like, "Y'all don't even care he's gone." That was one of the first memories I had. And I remember the funeral. I remember seeing a hole in the ground. I remember seeing a can filled with my father's ashes. I remember seeing people come and talk. I just started seeing life kind of pass before me. I didn't feel connected to it anymore. I didn't feel part of life. Part of me felt like I died there with him. And for a very long time, I was dead there with him. Starting 5th grade, my father passed in the summer between 4th and 5th grade. Starting 5th grade, I remember going to school, and the guidance counselor kind of pulled me to the side, and he was like, "Joe, I'm so sorry to hear. I read in the newspaper or saw that your father passed away." And they started a program. I guess they had a program called like Banana something, I don't know, but it was a program for kids that didn't have, one or both their parents in their life. And a lot of the kids there, I guess, parents left them or something. But I didn't find, I guess, at that time, I didn't find a connection with another kid that experienced what I experienced in a sense of a death or something. I remember just kind of going through school, 5th grade, and very similar to like how my mom took me to that boarding school and didn't talk to me before, didn't talk to me after, to feel my expressions and my emotions and everything. There wasn't any conversations or talking about grief counseling for me. There wasn't any kind of reach out. My grandparents, my father's parents, they were moved, and they moved when I was pretty much born. They moved to New Jersey, so I was in Pennsylvania. Everybody stayed away. My uncle, my dad's brother, he was all over the country. My mom's family, they were in the area that we were in and stuff, but we visited and stuff. I didn't feel like, I didn't feel like part of like their family, like, full. Of course, I knew I was their family, but my mom's brothers and all their kids, they're all the Italians and everything. They had their thing, and they loved it. I never felt no love for them, but I knew I just gravitated towards my dad. you know, my dad's family. That's just how I felt like, you know, that was my kid. That my main kid, my main family. Let me put it that way. From 5th grade to 6th grade, I just started to kind of float through life. I remember being 12 years old, just thinking about, this is life. Like, this is my life. Like, I feel like I just started like really internalizing a lot of things in life, as far as like, man, I'm really like on my own. You know, I didn't have that person anymore that would come scoop me up, pick me up, and hang out and you know, try to guide me and show me that love. So I didn't have that mentorship. I didn't have that guidance. Slowly started to find myself wanting to hang out with older kids. About middle school, about the summer between elementary school and middle school, 6th, 7th grade, started just to kind of want to find older kids, because I just was telling myself, there ain't nothing that anybody my age is going to be able to teach me or show me. You know, all the kids that I know, all my friends that I got, you know, they live in both their parents. They all seem to have a very influential household that is raising them and trying to teach and be involved in their lives. And I saw that I didn't have that in my life. I didn't have a home. It's weird to say that. Yes, I had a house, and yeah, there was wealth there. You know, it was wealth, but there was no community. There was no communion. There was no connection. At least not with me and my mom, at least, or really anything there. I still felt like the kind of addition to the family that was already going on before I got there, right? So started hanging out with a guy called Quentin. He was about 2-3 years older than me, and Quentin was the guy that I learned, you know, first met doing marijuana. And that's when I started smoking marijuana, you know, to kind of hang out. And, you know, I started liking the way I felt when I was high, because when I was high, I just had a good feeling. It was like I just felt good. I felt like chill. I felt like, you know, numb in a sense. Like, the high don't last so long, but during that time, I can sit around the woods if I wanted to, and I can just enjoy the woods. I can enjoy what's around me. I can actually just enjoy it. Because when I wasn't high at that time, I didn't have much enjoyment. I didn't have too many things to be happy about. I didn't have a way to replace the loss of the love that I had from my father. I didn't have something that would replace that in my life. Started becoming very bitter. By the time I got to be 15, my mom, at this point, had broke up with her boyfriend. You know, she was in a very abusive relationship with him. He was a very sexually abusive man towards my mother, physically abusive towards my mother. I remember coming home one day, I was either 12 or 13, and I come home and he had my mom pinned down on the ground, choking her out. And I just went up to the kitchen, grabbed the big butcher knife, walked up to him, I said, "Get off my mom." And I remember him left the house for a few days. But, I mean, I just did it. I just did it to, I guess, defend my mom, even though, you know, we didn't have like a real relationship. But I just looked at her and I felt so bad for her. Like, come home and you're giving up everything for this man. And look what he has you, pinned down on the ground like this. Like you're meat, like you're a dog. I guess that's why I felt pity for her. And even after that, I don't remember us talking about too much. I remember my mom probably just running into her room crying and dealing with it in her own way. And, you know, maybe that's what we all were doing, just dealing with life in our own way and how we were trying to figure it out. But eventually she moved out, got her own place. We got her place. We moved into it. My older brother moved back in. That's when my brother Gary moved in. And he was kind of like take over the man in the house, which was great. You know, I was happy to have him. But at this point, I was going through identity crisis in life, and I was finding a way to be my own person. I remember growing up to that point, I was trying to be like my brother Gary, being a rocker. He was all into rock music, old music, so I did everything he did, listen to everything he listened to, all that, you know, playing guitar, all that. I was like, I was following after him. I was mimicking my brother, you know. He was my role model at the time. But then, of course, when he leaves and, you know, comes back, you know, by this time, 15, pretty much 14, maybe 13, 14, I don't know, but I started to change my image It's when rap music started getting real big in the town that I was at. At this point, I was living in more like a suburban type town. And rap music started getting real big, and a lot of kids were kind of switching to that. And, I started listening to the music, and I was like, I kind of like this, man. I'm liking what I'm hearing. I'm liking what they're saying. I felt like I could relate to a lot of the pain, not as much of like the urban struggles of the drugs and all that kind of stuff and this, that, and the other, but there was just this hurt. There was this anger. There was this frustration in the music that I latched onto, I gravitated to. So when I switched into more of that approach as far as how I want to handle myself and the music I would listen to, my brother Gary, he was not for that at all. So me and him started to like shift and spread apart. And there was a time when he caught me smoking weed or whatever, knew I smoked weed, and he stopped talking to me for months. He just stopped all communication with me. There's another time, me and my brother Micah, we butt heads, we fought all the time like Cain and Abel, man. To me, he was like the mama's boy, always hiding the mama's skirt and running to hide and always telling on us and stuff. And he never like really kind of wanted to hang out with me and my brother like that. He'd hang out, but he'd always cry so quick and go run to mom and tell her everything we were doing. So it was like, bro, you can't hang out here if you're just snitching on every little thing we're doing. Like, you can't be part of this, We're not inviting this local snitch to go. So, I mean, that's my brother, but that's just how he was, man. He just always under mom's skirt, But that makes sense because when my parents left, she took him. So that's all he knew, that's all he knew was mom. But nonetheless, I was just full of anger, full of rage. And I remember one day, probably 14, 15, I was living in my mom's house with my brothers and stuff. I was sitting at the computer writing some stuff down, using a piece of paper. My mom walked behind me. My brother walked behind me. When he walked by me, he snatched the paper out of my hand and walked off after mom. He always just antagonized me. I can't explain it. But ever since I can remember, even people tell me, he used to always instigate fights with me. And I don't know why, because he never wanted to fight. He never wanted to do anything. As soon as I would get on him, he'd go running to mom. He always instigates stuff. And I'll never forget, he took this paper walking behind me around the corner. And I remember, I just blacked out. I started seeing spots in my eyes. Like, I lost it. I completely lost it in my life at that point. I remember walking behind him, walking past the kitchen counter, man, pulled out this big old giant knife, spun him around, put it to a stove. I was like, you, man. And my mom was right behind him, and she goes, ah! She grabs the knives at me. I move back. She throws the knife at me. Thank God it hit me. She's freaking out. Like I said, my brother's downstairs in the basement. He has his room down in the basement. And he's coming up like, what's going on? Yada, yada, yada. Next thing I know, the cops are there. My mom calls the cops on me. Cops are asking me what happened and blah, blah, blah. Next thing I know, I'm sitting in the back of the cop car. They getting ready to take me off. And I guess my brother, thank God, was able to talk him out of it. And I remember at that point that I went back in the house, and for at least a few months, my mom didn't say a word to me. I remember the first thing she said to me was actually at a therapy counseling session. She took me to some counseling session. And when, the guy was like, me and my mom going together. And even when she spoke, she didn't speak to me. She spoke to the guy about me and about what happened. She still would not even, look at me. She went months without even really looking at me. There's so many instances of just reminders of how I'm not loved. I'm not... What I went through or what I'm going through, what I'm feeling, is not important enough for people to want to hear or listen or even help me out. And I learned to accept that. There was a time my mom got real sick and she was getting not lung cancer, but breast cancer and surgeries and stuff like that. And it was probably 13, 14, all at the same time, around the same time we were living in that house. She used to tell me, don't get too close to me, Joe. I'm not going to be here much longer, don't. So when she started talking like that, I looked at it like, okay, you talking like you about to die any day now, or anytime you're going to die, don't get close to you. I'm not even going to think about getting close to you, because why would I want to try to get close to you at all knowing that what had happened to my father, and I know how I felt, I'm still dealing with that because he was so close to me. So why would I even want to get close to you then? So at that point, I was like, it is what it is. I wake up, I go to school if I want to go to school, and I do what I want. She woke up, went to work, worked 2 jobs. From the moment she got up at 7 o'clock, she wouldn't come home some days till 11 o'clock at night because so much she worked. So one time she got home, she went straight to bed, woke up, repeat. She was just working all day, all night. And that was it. Even if she tried to enforce a punishment or rule for me, she wasn't there to enforce it. So it's like, hey, after so many years of just neglecting parenting duties and stuff, it's kind of hard now when you try to take on that role as a parent and, you're not really there to do anything or to whatnot. Really, the times that me and my mom, I remember the times that we would have me and mom time, right? This would be me and mom time. It would be like a few times a year. At those points, twice a year, my mom would take us, or me specifically, to go clothes shopping for school, She was getting Social Security checks when my dad passed and everything. So she said, okay, Joe, go pick out, 2 outfits, whatever you want. 2 outfits. Same with shoes. All right, Joe, go pick out the shoes you want. I could pick out whatever shoes I want. I could pick out whatever outfits I wanted. The other time that I had my mom to myself is if she had to take me to court for probation violations or to get on probation or anything like that. So the dynamics that we had of just me and my mom on a court trip, so it was very awkward, It's either getting clothes or you gotta take me to court for whatever reason. By the age of 15 in high school, it's when I met my friend Shy. And when I met him, he was the first person in my life that I ever met the same understanding that I had, that his father had already passed away in jail too. So he was the first person I met that I could relate into in that situation. And by the time the summer came around, I ended up talking to my mom and I moved back to my old town. My old town that I grew up in when I lived with my dad and stuff, and asked her if I could, live with my Uncle Bob and stay over there. And fortunately enough for me, she was okay with it, agreed to it almost right away. So I was able to move into my Uncle Bob's apartment. At first, my mom was staying there too. She was trying to move out the old house and get her own place, so she was there. But just like the other house, she just stayed there to sleep basically. So besides working and whatever, she was in and out. So I pretty much was there to take care of myself. And I remember telling my mom that, hey, you might as well unenroll me from school this year because I ain't gonna pass. I'm gonna be honest with you. I had full intentions knowing what I was doing when I wanted to move back to that town. I was fully embracing that thug lifestyle, that mentality of I'm going to live like this. This is what I choose. This is what I'm gonna do. This is where I'm going to be to express myself in a way that I want to at this point in life. And really, who's going to tell me I can't? Because at the end of the day, that person isn't really doing nothing for me to try to, tell me otherwise. So at this point, I have fully embraced the concept of this thug gangster type lifestyle. And I remember my first night sleeping there. I'm above a corner store, 2nd floor. I had my window cracked open. All of a sudden, I'm hearing all these guys yelling and fighting and arguing, and right there at the street and talking about coke and talking about all this, that. And I just recognized, I said, okay, Joe, you wanted this? This is what you got. This stuff was not happening back in your old town. You right here where it's all popping off. And, I was cool with that. My friend Shy had already moved kind of to that area. He had already kind of hung out with some older guys. So I got to see him every now and then when I first got there. So I kind of got reintroduced back to my old town. And luckily for me, right across the street from me, around the corner, there was an old guy named Roni. Call him an old guy. He was my old head. He was 30 years old or whatnot. And he kind of took me under his wing, which was really good because in the neighborhood I was in, there's, you got the 4 corners. I was on the corner of the block and whatnot. Corner stores are where I lived. Across the street, that's where one of the big gangs in the area, they're all Latin Kings. They call themselves Iraq. One of the main guys lived there, so there'd be a whole bunch of guys hanging out in that neighborhood, that yard right there. On the other side, Roni, he lived in the bottom of the little apartment there. He had a porch right there that would be right there in the parking lot, looking out to the thing. In the other corner was just a regular house family and stuff. And So fortunate for me, I don't remember how it happened, but Ronnie kind of took me under his wing. He called me his young boy. I became his old hair. I kind of tell him a little bit about myself, that I'm new to the area, you know, yada, yada, yada. I don't really have, like, much family. My family was the guy who owned the corner store, my uncle at the bottom, and he wasn't liked by a lot of people in the neighborhood. My uncle was one of those religious types that, you know, you go up in his store and he'd be quick to let you know you're going to hell. Okay? That was his approach to the gospel. That's how he shared the gospel, telling everybody they was going to hell, right then and there. But, so I started just being too grown for myself, you know. My mom would drop me off at school. As soon as she dropped me off, I turned around and walked back home. I wasn't even going to class. If I did go to class, I slept for about the first 2 periods and I'd leave. Eventually, I got put into night school, and even then, I didn't want to go. They say, as long as you show up, you can pass. I was like, I don't care. I'm not worrying about school. I was working jobs to try to get some money. I was just, you know, living how I wanted to live. I didn't care. I didn't have any goals. I didn't have any future. I didn't have any motivation. I just wanted to have sex with girls. I wanted to drink alcohol. I wanted to smoke weed. I wanted to be accepted into this lifestyle. I wanted to be part of these streets. I wanted to be part of this with people. You know, I wanted to feel like I could make my own family. I wanted to feel like I could have them. I wanted to feel like I wanted to be around people that wanted to be with me, you know, and find things that, hey, we got to do stupid things with dumb stuff, but hey, at least we're doing them together, right? We're going to do these things together, and we're going to be, you know, tight with each other. Well, long story short, I ended up getting a car eventually, little Geo Metro 95 hatchback. That could probably fit 3 people comfortably, but we would stick like 5-6 people in it at once in the back. We parked, opened up all the doors, people just falling out, right? But we're trying to get as many people in the car to get from point A to point B, because I was one of the few people that even had a car. I got one from the auction for like a few $100s, it seemed like. But we ended up getting in trouble. Took some friends, not really friends, but people that I associated with, to go get some drugs one day, and ended up getting pulled over by the police on the highway. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning. It was the weirdest thing. I remember the highway speed limit kept going 35, 45, 35, 45. And I found myself, I was high on my mind, but I kept going 35, 45. I was like, I'm not breaking the speed limit at all. And I remember it was coming up to a light on the highway, and there was one car in front of me. And I remember looking all my mirrors, everything. I see no lights behind me, nothing. So I get in the left lane, around the car, pass it while he's turning right, and I get back to the right lane. 2 seconds later, whoop, whoop. I'm like, okay, I'm getting pulled over. Me in a car full of guys, 3 other guys in this car right now. Smoking a big old blunt, yeah. So long story, cops pulled us over. I'm like, why'd you pull me over, man? I know I ain't speeding. I know that. And he's like, well, you were doing hazardous driving because you didn't turn on your blinker when you switched lanes. And I'm like, this guy. Not a single car on the highway for miles, no lights. And he pulled me over because I didn't turn my blinker on when I went around the car. I was like, all right, man. Long story short, the cop was asking me, do I give him consent to search the vehicle? I'm like, what? You asking me what? Now, this was out of town. This was not in town. This was on a highway between the town that I was going to pick up the drugs and the other town. This cop started asking me about consent. I'm like, consent? I didn't know what he was talking about. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, you have to give me consent to search the vehicle. If you don't give me consent, we'll have to take the vehicle. So I asked him, I said, so if I don't give you consent, that means you can't search the vehicle and anything in the vehicle, right? He said, yeah, that means that includes the people in the vehicle. You can't search us, right? He was like, yeah. Well, that's what he said. I was like, okay, no, I'm not giving you consent. He was like, what? You're not giving me consent? I said, no, I'm not giving you consent. He said, I'm going to ask you 2 more times. If you don't give me consent by the 3rd time, I'm going to take your vehicle and impound it. I said, I'm not giving you consent. Because in my mind, I know the guy on my right just bought a whole 1/4 ounce of coke, right? So I'm thinking, hey, here goes this guy. I'm getting him off free. So the cops then just take everything up, takes us out the vehicle. Of course, he handcuffs me because I'm a minor. Calls my mom, lets them know that he's bringing me home. They take my vehicle, and I see these 3 guys being taken out the car and told to walk down the highway. They got off scot-free. Nothing, right? So a couple days pass. I'm at my brother's house, visiting, and I get there, and he tells me, he says, Joe, the cops think you're on the run. Hold on. He picks up the phone. He calls his police department or whatnot. And he's like, I have Joe here right now. What are you going to do with him? I'm sitting here like, what are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about? He's telling me they found a 1/4 ounce of coke in your car. What? So what had happened, the guy sitting in the passenger seat got scared and put the coke underneath the seat. If he would have kept it on him, scot-free. So I'm sitting here like, what's going on? My whole world's shifting and changing and stuff. By this point, I had moved back with my mom. Of course, I already said that part of the story. I moved back with my mom and everything. And I was just kind of like, I was blown away. I didn't know what was going on. I'm like, the cops said they get me when they want me. I'm like, what? So I went back to my mom's house. And shortly after that, I don't remember all the specific details, but I remember her telling me one thing. And she told me, you need to join the military. I was like, yeah, right, dude. I ain't joining the military. Ain't no way I'm joining the army. Forget that. I'm not doing it, Mom. No. So she let it go. Next day, she brought it up again. She said, yo, you need to join the military. I said, I'm not, Mom. You already asked me why. Stop asking me. I'm not doing it. She's like, okay. Well, you got till Friday. Get your stuff and get out my house. Bet. Okay. So here I am with the situation in my life, right? My understanding, somehow I got this coke situation pending over me. I don't know what's up with that. Now my mom's kicking me out the house. I have nowhere to go. I'm seeing a problem in my life. I'm 17, I'm not even yet 18. So I'm wondering, like, God, if I get in trouble, they wait until I turn 18. Like, all these things is running through my head. I didn't know what to do. I know what I was not ready to do. I was not ready to go back to live on my own. I was not ready to go back live on the streets. Because the situation that arose at my uncle's house was a very bad situation that happened. And I knew the lifestyle I was living doing that. Death or jail was the only thing I was going to see at a very young age. So, against my own free will, I agreed to have my mom take me up to the recruiter station. So I went to recruiting. They realized I was very smart. They realized I could just take my GED test right then and there. Of course, they had to take me to a place to get my GED. So I went there, passed the GED test, no issue. Didn't have to study, didn't do nothing. And that just kind of blew me away. I was thinking, like, man, I haven't really done schoolwork since, like, the 5th grade. Like, for real, honestly, I didn't study. I didn't do homework. I just took tests. That's it. I didn't do schoolwork for maybe about 10th grade. I only passed 10th grade because they put me in alternative school. And it said, as long as you come to class, you will pass this year. Okay. It was like a glorified daycare, the place I had to go to for that. It was nice. It wasn't bad compared to, what it could have been. So I got my GED, and I was able to join the military. 17, I got stationed. Went to basic training. At 18, I got to Fort Hood when I got duty station. And within the first couple of weeks of me being put in Fort Hood, I got my orders deployed to Iraq. And I'm not going to go through all that situation on this testimony. I've already been speaking a lot of time leading up to this point. But I will continue with a little bit more to share as far as how I met the Lord Jesus Christ. Because if you sat here and listened to this for 40 minutes and you still haven't got to that point yet, then I think you probably want to hear how I got to that conclusion. So, after my deployment from Iraq, I came back, and my drug of choice was always marijuana. Everybody else on my unit, other guys, they were drinking heavily every day. The barracks room, coping, however they were doing it. They were drinking alcohol. Me, I was trying to drive my car. I didn't want to drink and drive, so I smoked marijuana. That's how I coped and dealt with it. The problem being, marijuana's not allowed in the military, okay? They gave us a pop test for drugs right before our block leave. Block leave means that they're about to give you like 40 days off to go home, be with family, recoup. We just had a year over there in Iraq, Take time. Go with loved ones. I failed the drug test for weed. An NCO that was smoking weed too. Somehow he didn't fail the drug test. And that same NCO pretty much took my block leave away from me by telling my commander that I was a flight risk and everything was just taking me by surprise. Whoosh, whoosh. I'm like, what's going on? At that point, that's when I realized I wasn't going to be a soldier no more. I couldn't do it. I couldn't be in a place where people could do the same things I'm doing, and I'm getting in trouble for them, and then they're judging me like I'm the worst thing since whatever. So I asked them to, do my paperwork. I ain't a soldier no more. I didn't realize that they were going to do it initially, but a few months later, they started my paperwork. I started being chaptered out the Army. So at this point, I'm going to have to go through 45 days extra duty, where basically from 6 o'clock till midnight, I belong to the barracks. And if they want me to cut grass with the scissors, that's what I'm doing for 8 hours a day. Whatever they tell me, that's what it is. This is what it is. You're basically like you're in jail, but you get to stay in your barracks. Whatever they tell you to do is what you're doing. You got to do it. I remember one Saturday, I was at the motor pool. It's just a place where you have to put all the vehicles at. And I was sitting there pulling grass out of the rocks. That's what I was supposed to do all day, sit there and just pull grass out of rocks. So basically, you're just going to be there. That's it. You're by yourself, that's your job. So I'm sitting there pulling grass out of rocks, and I look up, and all of a sudden I see this tiny little fox sitting there about 15 feet away from me, sitting down, staring right at me. And all of a sudden, I started crying, and I felt just like that fox. I felt all alone and out of place in this world. And at that point in my life, I realized I needed to find a reason to live in this life, or else I'm going to take my life, because I don't want to live here no more. I don't want to be here no more. What I saw me getting ready to do when I got kicked out the military was the same reason why I joined the military. What I had going for me at that point was nothing but jail and the grave. That was my future. That's all the future I had. That's what I was going towards. So, in that moment, I remember picking up the phone. I called my mom, of all people. I called my mom. And this is how that phone call went. Ring, ring, ring. Hi, Joe. How's it going? Hey. She's really happy to hear me, because I don't call her hardly ever. And I say, Mom, I can't believe that Jesus was the only one who heard from God. I'm going to look in all religions for myself, Mom. I don't care if it's Buddha, Allah, I don't care. Because if all God can offer me is what he's offering you, I need something real in my life, Mom, because your life's an effing mess. And I hung up the phone. And that's when I realized I needed to know the truth. I needed to find out for myself what was the purpose for living. What was my purpose? Why was I here? Why do I still have to be here in this life? I ended up writing a song. The song was called These Are the Reasons. And in the song, I had wrote a lot of things that I never really shared with too many people, if anybody. Because not a lot of people care. Friends, a lot of people don't want to hear your stories or problems. They're not there for you for that. They're there to party, they're there to hang out. They're not here to care about your well-being at all. So I wrote this song, and in this song, I put out all this stuff. And I said to myself, you know what? The world gave me all this. I'm giving it back to the world. I'm putting it out there. I'm not going to hold on to this stuff anymore. I'm not going to bottle all this stuff up. And I came across a website that I learned about meditation. Meditation, the thought of it was just quiet your mind, quiet everything. And I did that. And at this point, I'm going to add just a little footnote. I knew about God. I knew about Jesus up to this point. Almost every single night while I was deployed, I used to pray to God at night that he would save my soul and forgive me for my sins. Because I remember as a little child, my parents teaching me that prayer. And I guess it might have just been something that I was taught growing up, that if you were to die right now, if you don't have Jesus as your Lord and Savior, you're going to hell. And I guess part of me, in the midst of a war zone where, death could be any day, any minute, you don't know. I guess I didn't want to think of a possibility of leaving this hellhole and spending the rest of my life in another hellhole just because I didn't ask this person to come live in my heart. So every single night I would pray and ask and say that same prayer. Jesus, please forgive me for my sins. If I die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. And I would pray that every night. But when I got up and when I lived, I didn't care about God or Jesus. I didn't want nothing to do with those guys, man. I feel like they were really the cause of my problems. I felt like they were the engineers of my destruction. I felt like they were the architects of my pain. Everything I felt that I was taught about God and everything at that point was, God's in control of everything. Everything that happens is his will. So I'm like, well, all these horrible things are happening. I guess that's God's will for my life. That's what he wants, for me to just be miserable. Great. I guess somehow that's cool. So I started meditating that one day. Then the next morning I woke up. And somehow, some way, everything changed in me. Everything seemed different. I could feel other people's emotions. I would look at somebody, and if they were smiling, I felt overwhelmed by joy with them. If they were looking sad, I felt overwhelmed by sadness for them. I all of a sudden was connecting with life around me. I would turn on my music, and I was like, whoa. I would start feeling like negative vibes, like negative feelings. I'm like, what is this? Oh, I had to turn it off because I was like, what's going on? What's happening here? Right? Before I learned about meditation on a website called True Vampirism. So I'm not going to go into details about true vampirism, but it's some crazy, weird stuff about energy and all that weird stuff. So all of a sudden, I'm feeling everything like in a positive and a negative feeling. Positive means it makes you feel good. A negative thing makes me feel as bad. Like, oh, I don't want this. Like, it's like dirty poop. I don't want to touch it. I don't want to be near it. And I'm like, how is my music doing that to me? Just yesterday, I would be bumping Beanie Siegel, The Truth, windows down, loud. I don't care, anywhere and everywhere I go. I'm letting them hear what I'm doing. I got my Colt 45 sitting here with me. I wish somebody would try to step to me being stupid. That's the mentality I have. But all of a sudden today, I can't even listen to it. Out of my whole book of CDs, I maybe had a couple songs I could listen to. I felt like, okay, this is kind of this has a decent vibe. It's not like bad. It's not good. It's decent. And there's 2 Tupac songs. Okay, so for the Tupac fans out there, Tupac got two okay mixed. So okay, like it wasn't a push off right away. I love Tupac. I loved him, So about 3 days, I'm going around. And I'm like telling people, I'm like, yo, man, I don't know what's going on with me, man. Something's changed. I think I'm having an awakening, I think I'm going through an awakening. I'm feeling life around me. I never felt this. I haven't felt life. I haven't felt emotions outside of my own miserable self. I haven't felt this. And my sister-in-law, it was her birthday. It was about 3 days after this happened. So I went to go to her house, just wish her happy birthday, yada yada. My wife, we weren't married at the time, but she was currently in Korea. When I met her, she was joining the military. And I was getting ready to deploy, so we had about a year and a half of separation when we first started dating, right? So, another story, another time. So, I went to the house to wish her happy birthday. And I remember I walked in the house, sat down on the couch, and on the couch, I noticed a little New Testament poem Bible. The little ones you can fit in your pocket, New Testament only, with the Psalms and the Proverbs. And it was weird because besides that day and since that day and before that day, I don't ever recall seeing a Bible just sitting on the couch. Ever. Ever. In the last 20 years of me knowing my family-in-law, right? So I'm sitting down talking to her, and my hand picks up this book on the side of the couch next to me. I'm talking. I feel my fingers start fidgeting through the book. And in the middle of my sentence, I stop. I look down, and I read 3-4 lines. And after I read these 4 lines, my life completely changed. I'm going to paraphrase a little bit. It's in 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 5 through 8, I believe. But the first line's what immediately got my attention. It said, "For the sufferings of Jesus Christ flow over into our lives, so also our comfort comes through him. And our hope for you is firm." This is the disciples talking to the people in Corinth. "That as we know that you share the same sufferings that we're experiencing, you're also going to share in the same comfort. And we're going to comfort each other as we're all going through the same type of trials and tribulations that we're going to have with each other. And we're going to be able to help comfort each other and express it. And if we're going through anything, it's for your comfort. And if you go anything, it's for our comfort." So I read that. And when I read those words, all of a sudden in my mind and my spirit, I could hear God talking to me. And while I'm reading these words and I'm hearing now this voice talking to me, and it wasn't as audible as like you're hearing my voice, but I heard these clear as day. And when I was hearing these things, like everything else in the world around me just disappeared. And I could just envision this man on the cross. And I heard 4 things. First was that everything that happened to me happened for a reason. Because when I read those words, "for the sufferings of Jesus Christ," if I had to sum up my life up to that point in one word, what would I say? Suffering would have been that word. Just suffering. Because I'm suffering on this life. He said everything that happened for a reason. The second thing I heard was that you're doing your music for me now. When I heard that, I'm like, hold up. What? I'm doing my music for you? Do you know what kind of music I'm doing down here? Do you understand what we're talking about and doing out here? And I'm white? Are you trying to get me killed out here? I never heard of nobody talking about God or Jesus in their rap. And now I'm hearing I'm doing my music for him? Okay. Next I heard, the third thing, was that he loved me. That was nice to hear. I didn't fully understand. Oh, okay, you love me. Why? Like how? Like how could you love me? I just got done giving you the middle finger on the phone with my mom. Why would you love me? Okay. And the last thing, the fourth thing that I heard was that I would go back and tell people who I used to be that he's real and he's love. Because as you could probably imagine, I used to be that 16-year-old kid out there in the streets. And if somebody walked up to me and told me about God's love for me, I would let them know about God's love for me. And I would tell them that, oh, God's love for me. Let me tell you about God's love for me, brother. God took my heart out of my chest, picked it out, threw it on the ground, stepped on it, squished it real good, picked it up off the ground, put it back in my chest and said, deal with it. Brother, that's God's love for me in life. F your God. F your love. F everything about you. Get out of here. I don't want nothing to do with you. That was my impression of God's love. And when I left that house, I went back to my barracks room. And I got to my room. And I saw my bag of ecstasy pills. I saw my weed. I saw my gangster clothes. I saw all my shoes. I saw all my CDs. I saw all my pornography. I saw everything that I had in my possession that belonged to me. And I remember hearing the Spirit of God tell me, everything that you have been consuming your life with, none of it for even 1 second gave you the peace and the love and the acceptance that you feel right now in your heart. And the only reason you feel this right now in your heart is because of my son Jesus died for you. And he paid your price. And he rose again from the grave to redeem you from me. There's nothing like it in the world to open yourself up and realize that everything you thought was messed up, a light starts to shine, eyes no longer blind from the depression that plagued me throughout my lifetime. Men, listen up, and women come close. It's time to talk about all the things that hurt us most, from deaths in the family, all the drugs calling me. I can honestly say that it no longer bothers me. Searching you will find all your heart's desire, expanding your soul only adds fuel to the fire. Don't listen to liars. Stay true to yourself as the first to receive help and nobody else after the fact. Carry on with the mission. Shed light on one who deserves the most recognition. My position in life is exactly that, to help you understand ways to get out of the trap. Now, I ain't talking about in the physical form, but all this emotional stress that leaves your soul torn. The church lies within. Everyone has sinned. Be the better man. Live with it and make amends. True friends are pointed out. All the rest will leave. Don't sweat it. Everyone will catch the breeze. Time will be given. All the wrongs forgiven. Trust God. Only He can break you out of your prison. No longer will another man's words bother me. I was a lost soul. Now loving me is a hobby. I'm not here to judge, and He'll never hold a grudge. He can feel your pain because He walks the road with thugs, drug dealings, court cases appealing. Leaves a wounded man's mind to show his heart no feeling. Reasons start to hit the roof. Some so bad, even the strong will stray from the truth. I'm not gonna preach cause words are weak. Take actions upon yourself, see the goal and reach. I'm no hypocrite, I made many mistakes. Acknowledgement is the step to be one of the greats. Many more will follow up. The path is tough, but it's the only way that you're gonna break the cuffs. Be restrained no more. Why settle the score? Let God judge the ones that wanna close their door. The only thing that you can do is give it a knock. It's up to them to undo the lock and the pain to stop. When the law does wrong, hold on, be strong. Don't take the abuse, but good will always prolong. Never dished out any more than you can handle. Don't stress over missing faces on the fire mantle. I practice what I preach, ain't nothing fake. I put my past on the track just so you can relate. There's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. Nothing like the love of Jesus. And at that point in my life, I didn't care about nothing else but the love of Jesus. Because that's the one thing that I missed ever since my dad got put in the earth, was love. The love and acceptance of just me being alive. And that same love is what He offers to everybody and anybody who is willing to hear His voice and accept that He did die for them and He rose again from the grave, and that He holds the keys to death and hell, and that all authority in heaven and on earth has been given unto Him, and He pardons whoever comes to Him, and He will never turn you away. So that was part one of probably a few different lengthy sessions of testimonies that I'm probably going to put out at some point. If you're still here, I just want to thank you. I just want to bless you, because I know that the loving God and the Spirit of God is touching you and reaching out to you and sowing seeds and watering seeds, and He's going to give you growth if He hasn't already given you growth during this mission. So if anything was said that touched you, or you want to hear more, or you want to question, or you want to let me know I'm crazy or whatever, hit me up on Facebook, hit me up on the messenger, let me know. I'll do whatever I can to respond back. If you're far, I'll pray with you. You need prayer? I need prayer. If the Lord's leading you to pray for me on something, if you feel like you're hearing things that the Lord's saying, your brother's still dealing with things and he needs help, let me know. Pray for me. I appreciate that. I really do. Because we all need it. Every day that we walk this earth, we need His guidance. We need His love. We need His Spirit. We need fellowship with one another. So may you be blessed. May you be filled with His Holy Spirit. And may you continue to knock on that door, and it'll open for you. If you continue to seek, you will find. And if you continue to ask, it will be given to you. God bless you. Love y'all. And see you next time.